I'm AJ from AG Tutorials. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to install Xcode. Again, if you remember from last video, Xcode is the program that we will use to create our iOS apps. So the first thing that you want to do is to click on the Mac App Store icon on your computer. And once you're in your Mac App Store, in the search bar, you want to type in Xcode. This is the program that we want to install. It is right here. Usually it should be the first result when you search Xcode. If you click on it, you will notice that it is by Apple and it is #1 in developer tools. So make sure to click install. I have already installed mine, so the button here says open. Once you've installed Xcode, make sure to open it. You can either do that by clicking on open, going into your launchpad and opening Xcode, or clicking Command Spacebar and then type in Xcode and click enter. When you load up Xcode, this is what shows up. It says welcome to Xcode, and then it has the version number. I'm using version 10, so Xcode 10. Every few months, the Xcode version is updated, so pretty soon it will be Xcode 11. However, the basic things will still apply to future versions as well, unless I specify that it doesn't in the title or something, only if there's such a drastic change. But Xcode has not changed that drastically over the past few updates, so this area should be the same. The first welcome window that pops up gives us 3 options. Get started with a playground, create a new Xcode project, and clone an existing project. For the purposes of learning without actually creating an application, we will be working with the playgrounds because we can actually then work with code without all of the clutter from the projects. Xcode projects are actual applications. So once you start learning how the basics of Xcode and Swift work, then we will start to create Xcode projects and actually work on applications, which is, in the end, the thing that you really want to do. The third option, clone an existing project, is to copy another project. And we will not really use this at all that much, but mainly you will notice that you will use these 2 up here, create an Xcode project and get started with a playground. So click on get started with a playground because that is the first thing that we are going to start with out just so that you can learn the basics. You'll notice that it asks you to choose a template for your new playground. There's an option for iOS, tvOS, and macOS. For the purposes of this series of tutorials, we will only be talking about iOS. In the future, I might do a macOS series if it is requested, but for right now, I'm sticking with iOS, just to teach you the basics on iOS. You notice that you have 4 different templates. You have a template for blank, game, map, and single view. These 3 right here we'll worry about on a later date as you start to refine your coding skills, but for right now we're just going to start with blank. So click on blank. We're creating a blank template, and then make sure to save it. I'm going to save it to my desktop, and I'm just going to call it getting started, and click on create. This is what opens up. You will notice on the top right here, you have a few options. Here it has a status area of what's actually happening in the background. For example, right now it's launching a simulator, and you have a little activity wheel right here. Then you notice right here you have a button with brackets, and this is the library. We will worry about this later, but it basically stores blocks of code that we can actually pull in like that, and it automatically fills in our code for us. So that is pretty cool. But for right now, again, with our learning purposes, we're not really going to use the library that much, but it's important to know where it is. Then you will notice over here you have 3 other buttons. The first button, which is already highlighted, is showing the standard editor. This right here, this entire pane right here, is the standard editor. Now you might notice that yours is white or it's a different color than mine. If you want it to be this darker color, which I prefer, go to Xcode and then click on Preferences. And then under Font and Colors, make sure to choose Dusk or Dark, default dark. For the purposes of all my tutorials, I'm going to make sure I use presentation large dark, just so that you can actually see all the code I'm doing extremely large. It's easy then to follow. Next to the standard editor button, you'll notice the assistant editor button. And the assistant editor allows you to open 2 pages of code at once. For right now, since we are working with a single page of code, we do not have another page that we can open, but it is important to know what the assistant editor does, especially later on when we start working with Xcode projects. Being able to have multiple pages of code open at once is extremely useful. The button next to that is the version editor. And the version editor allows us to work with different versions of our code. It is much more advanced and we will not focus on it, but it is important to know what this button does. Then you have 3 buttons here, on the left, on the bottom, and on the side, right here. And these allow you to open different panes. The leftmost one allows you to open the navigator. And the navigator opens kind of a file type of system, a file system. And you can then navigate within files inside of your project. The bottom right here allows you to open what is called a debug area. Sometimes we can print out or get out information from our code, and that information will be placed in the debug area. Then the last pane is on the right. We will not be using this pane that much in our playgrounds, but later on in our projects it is important to know. This pane shows us a lot of detail about different things in our code and different things in general. And it is pretty much called the inspector pane. You will have many different tab options here as well. Again, for the purposes of playgrounds, is what we'll be working with in the next videos. You won't really need to be using the inspector or the file navigator. The thing that we'll be using the most in playgrounds is the debug area. So it's important to know how to open this. The last thing I want to talk about is right here. This area right here. And it allows you to also navigate between files. If you have multiple files inside of your project, you can click here and quickly navigate to your files. It's quite similar to the file navigator here. You also have many options up here, as you can see, next to the Apple symbol up here. You have Xcode, you have a lot of stuff here, including the preferences, which is how I showed you to change the color of your code. You have File, which allows you to work with file management. Edit, which has some of the clipboard options. This is cut, copy, paste, and paste special. View, which allows you to show different views in your code. Find, to allow you to find code, and so on. So that is it for the basics of Xcode tutorial. I was mainly wanting you to understand how to navigate Xcode, because in the next few videos we'll be actually jumping over into the standard editor, which is this area right here, and actually start coding, which I know is what you are excited about. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please leave your questions in the comment section below. Please like and subscribe for more content. Again, thanks for watching.